America first, more like Argentina first. Trump's beef and bailout fail. Here we are again, the same show, fresh cast, America's top headline: protect the homeland, build the fortress, keep the jobs for US workers. That was the promise. But what do we get? The US buying beef from Argentina, yes, beef, while handing Argentina billions in aid. That's not irony. That's humiliation. A leader who marched out America First rhetoric is now practically feeding Argentina's economy while US ranchers and workers get brushed aside. The beef deal. How American beef ends up Argentinian. Here's how the narrative flips. Trump says domestic beef prices are sky high. He says he cares about the American consumer, but instead of standing by US ranchers, he suggests the US will import beef from Argentina. Yes, from Argentina. He tells reporters, "We would buy some beef from Argentina. If we do that, that will bring our beef prices down." Now, imagine you're an American cattle rancher. You voted for the guy who said he'd be on your side. You're watching your herd shrink, your costs rise. Meanwhile, the government signals it might let foreign beef flood the market. Beef that didn't start on your land, didn't pay the same production costs, didn't fight the same battles, and that's just the start. The bailout? Billions to Argentina while America waits. Let's pile on. While the beef import proposal flies, the US is also prepping a billion-scale financial lifeline to Argentina. Talk about America first. The US is underwriting Argentina's economy, aligning with Argentina's leadership, and positioning itself as the savior of a country that, let's be honest, is becoming a competitor in agriculture and trade. American farmers and ranchers do the hard work. They face the weather, input costs, trade wars. They're told, hang in there. Meanwhile, a government that promised to defend them looks the other way as aid flows to the country whose exports now threaten them. You might ask, what's the logic? The logic is political theatre. It's about alliances, foreign policy signals, and favour banking. It's not about the everyday American worker. The betrayal of the base and the myth of strength. Here's the betrayal. The America First base expects jobs, trade protection, support. Instead, they're watching imports roll in and foreign aid go out. One hand tosses cash, the other opens the door. Trump ousted globalist rhetoric, promised to stand by the American worker. Now his administration is saying, we'll boost imports from Argentina to lower prices. To the rancher in Kansas, that message reads, we prefer your pain over ours. And for a leader whose brand is strength, this is weakness. If you're running a fortress, you don't feed the outsiders while your walls crack. You don't outsource your beef. You don't give billions to someone who's in your sector's rear mirror. The fallout and what it exposes. So what does this expose? Weak border or weak economic front when it comes to commerce and agriculture. A political compass that points to foreign aid first and working Americans second. A narrative collapse. Protect our own becomes protect others, then hope our own survive. And the voters know, the workers know, the ranchers know. This isn't just bad policy, it's bad politics. If you can't keep your promises to the people who elected you, you're not leading, you're performing. This isn't a nuanced debate, it's a moment of clarity. You can't claim America first while funneling billions abroad and sourcing your beef from overseas. You can't brand yourself as the shield for the working class and then open the back door to foreign producers. So yes, this is humiliation, a bald-faced swing and miss, and the stage isn't going to forget it. America doesn't just need a leader who says first, it needs a leader who means it, someone who walks the walk and defends the homeland in word and deed. Until then, every export check to Argentina, every beef import, every dollar handed out is a chisel mark on the promise. Because when you feed someone else's economy while your own workers wait, you've already handed them the win. You know what's really fucking wild? We're in the fucking United Kingdom, not a dictatorship, not a war zone, and a professor in London is being targeted for dismissal simply because he once served in the IDF. Not because he broke the law, not because of misconduct, because of where he once wore a uniform. This isn't protest, this isn't discourse, this is targeted harassment dressed up in political slogans. And what's even more fucked, The so-called leadership in this country, high Labour, is sitting on its arse, doing fuck all to stop it. Labour's been out here waving the equality banner for years, promising they'd tackle anti-Semitism. But the moment real anti-Semitism crawls out into the daylight, what do? Fucking nothing. The madness unfolding. A group of pro-Palestinian protesters in London is calling for a professor to be ousted because he served in the Israeli military years ago. Let me repeat that. They're not targeting him for anything he did as an academic, not for a crime, not for misconduct, but for his past service in a legal, recognized military force of a democratic country. What the fuck is going on? How the fuck is this even a thing in 2025? We're supposed to be a country that protects academic freedom, that stands on the foundation of law. But apparently, if you're Jewish and you once served in the IDF, your job can now be dragged into a fucking protest movement. This isn't justice. This isn't accountability. This is ideological bullying. It's discrimination, loud and proud, and too many people are fucking silent about it. Labour's useless arse. Let's be honest, Labour hasn't done a single meaningful thing to stop anti-Semitism in this country. They'll tweet some vague shit, they'll call for dialogue, maybe trot out some generic "we condemn all hate" line. But when it's Jewish people being targeted, when it's an actual human being at risk, they vanish into the political wallpaper. This is happening on their watch. They're the ones in power, and yet they act like it's someone else's fucking problem. You don't have to agree with the Israeli government. Hell, you can despise their policies and still say this shit is wrong. Because it is. It's morally wrong. It's legally wrong. It's fucking dangerous. Let's be real, this is anti-Semitism. If this professor had served in the US military, or the French, or the Australian, no one would give a flying fuck. No one would be out on the streets chanting for his head. But because it's the IDF, suddenly it's open season. That is anti-Semitism. And it's fucking vile. This isn't accountability. This isn't activism. This is people using the Israel-Palestine conflict as a cover to target Jews in Britain. Full stop. And if you're too cowardly to say that out loud, then you're part of the problem. A dangerous precedent? Think about what this means if we let it slide. Today it's one professor, tomorrow it's students, after that it's doctors, lawyers, journalists, anyone with a link to Israel, even historical, suddenly becomes fair game for a public harassment, boycotts, or job losses. That's not activism. That's fucking McCarthyism dressed in a keffiyeh. When you let mobs decide who can work and who can't based on national origin or past military service, you are gutting academic freedom, free speech, and basic equality under the law. And the Labour Party's silence is deafening. Britain is playing with fire. We've been here before. Anti-Semitism in this country isn't some fringe little problem. It's been festering for years. It's been tiptoed around. It's been buried under soft language like community tensions and complex history. Fuck that. Call it what it is. Hatred, targeting, intimidation. And every time Labour and the institutions tiptoe around it, they make it stronger. They embolden the mob. They send a message. Yeah, we might not approve of it, but we're not going to stop you either. That's how rot spreads. Freedom has a price. Free speech isn't about protecting ideas you agree with. It's about protecting people you might not. Academic freedom doesn't mean you get to pick and choose which professor gets to exist based on your politics. And in Britain, a supposedly democratic nation, formerly serving in a foreign military, is not a fucking firing offence. It's none of their business. It's not relevant to his job. And anyone pushing for his dismissal on that basis is not a protester. They're a fucking bigot with a sign. A government with no balls. Where the fuck is the government response? Where's the Home Secretary? Where's the Education Secretary? Where's the Prime Minister? They jump to tweet the second a celebrity says something controversial, but when real anti-Semitism happens right under their nose, they're suddenly mute. I'll tell you why. Because they're scared. They're fucking cowards. They're terrified of upsetting certain activist groups. They'd rather let anti-Semitism slide than face backlash. And that right there is how hate gets mainstreamed, if it was anyone else. Imagine if this was a professor who had once served in the British Army, or the American Army, or God forbid, a left-leaning government's military, the same politicians and institutions would be bending over backwards to defend their rights. But because it's Israel, suddenly everything's up for debate. There's nothing to debate. You don't get to target someone's livelihood based on who they once served with. That's not free speech, that's discrimination, and it's fucking disgusting. This should terrify everyone. Even if you hate Israel, even if you're the loudest pro-Palestinian protester on the block, if you actually give a shit about freedom, this should terrify you. Because the second we start letting mobs decide employment based on nationality, past service, or political identity, nobody is safe. Today it's the IDF. Tomorrow it's someone else. Mob rule doesn't stop where it starts, it grows. This country is slipping into madness. Antisemitism is rotting the edges of our so-called democracy, and the people in power are too fucking weak to do anything about it. You don't have to love Israel, you don't have to agree with the IDF, but if you can't stand up and say, this is wrong, if you can't call out discrimination when it's right in your face, then don't pretend you give a fuck about justice. Labour needs to grow a spine. The government needs to do its fucking job. And these protesters need to learn that freedom cuts both ways. This professor deserves protection, not persecution. And the UK needs to decide right now whether it's going to stand for free speech or for mob rule. We need to talk about something deadly fucking serious. Not some clickbait scandal, not some Westminster soap opera. I'm talking about spying in London. 3 men have been arrested on suspicion of assisting a Russian intelligence operation right here, under our noses. And the part that should have every single one of us raging, they're not telling us the nationalities of these men. Not a fucking whisper, not a hint, nothing. They'll tell you the ages, they'll tell you they were arrested in West and Central London. They'll tell you, oh, it's a suspected Russian spy ring. But the second you ask who the fuck these men are, everything goes silent. Why? Why the fuck can't we know? Because, and this is important, there's a difference between a foreign national spy and a fucking traitor. And that difference is everything. Traitor or foreign national. It matters. If these bastards are foreign nationals, that's bad enough. It means Russian operatives, assets or handlers are slithering around London like it's a fucking open house. It means we've got holes in our border, holes in our counterintelligence, holes in our national security. That's a national disgrace in itself. But if these men are British citizens, if they were born here, raised here, educated here, enjoyed the freedoms of this country, then turned around and worked for a hostile foreign power, that's not just espionage, that's fucking treason. And let me be very, very clear, I will never accept a traitor. I will never forgive a traitor. I don't give a fuck what excuse they give. Silence is not neutral. It's a choice. They can trot out whatever polished PR bollocks they want. Ongoing investigation, sensitive intelligence. We can't compromise national security. But the fact remains, they've already made this arrest public. This is already out there. So why the fuck can't they give us a basic fact like nationality? If it's foreign nationals, say so. If it's British citizens, say so. Because the longer they say nothing, the more it stinks. This silence isn't about protecting the public. It's about protecting themselves. It's about managing fallout. It's about controlling the narrative. You see, if it turns out these men are foreign nationals, that's a massive failure of border control and national security. If it turns out they're British traitors, that's an even bigger failure, because that means our enemies don't just slip through our cracks, they recruit from within. Either way, it's a fucking disgrace. The weakness of this country is palpable. We've got a country where 3 men can allegedly work with a hostile foreign power in the capital of the fucking nation, and instead of being hit with a full-scale national response, we get a press statement. What the fuck happened to consequences? What happened to defending the nation like it actually means something? It's like this country has grown comfortable with infiltration, comfortable with silence, comfortable with pretending that nothing's burning while the house is clearly on fucking fire. We can't even say if they're outsiders or homegrown snakes. And make no mistake, that matters. Foreign spies are one problem. Traitors are something far worse. A foreign spy wants to undermine us. A traitor already belongs here. They know our systems, our culture, our vulnerabilities. A traitor doesn't just break the law, they break the social contract. They spit in the face of the very people who trusted them. Treason isn't some pretty word, it's a fucking scar. Treason isn't something you brush off like a parking ticket. It's the gravest fucking betrayal there is. A traitor isn't just a criminal. They are a walking wound in the nation's chest. A foreign national can be deported. A traitor is rot in the foundation. And the fact that the state isn't even acknowledging which kind of threat this is, that should terrify everyone. I'm not buying the classified line. If the government can brief the press about where and when the arrest happened, they can tell us if these are British citizens or not. Period. This isn't about operational secrecy. This is about covering their own incompetent arses. Because if they admit these are foreign nationals, they admit our border and intelligence agencies failed to detect a Russian network operating right here. And if they admit they're British, then they admit there are traitors in the ranks. Both are catastrophic. So what do? They shut the fuck up. This country has gone soft. There used to be a time when something like this would set off alarms in every corner of government. There'd be consequences, names, trials, warnings, a sense of fucking seriousness about what this means. Now, we get a neatly worded press statement and radio silence, and that's how enemies grow comfortable. This is why I take treason seriously. Treason is not just one bad apple. Treason is rot. It spreads. It weakens everything it touches. When a traitor works with a hostile power, they aren't just endangering state secrets, they're endangering all of us. Every soldier, every civil servant, every piece of infrastructure, every civilian life. That's why I don't forgive traitors. That's why I don't accept traitors. That's why this silence infuriates me. Because the difference between a foreign national and a traitor isn't semantics. It's the difference between a breach and a fucking cancer. We deserve answers, not a managed story. They owe the public clarity. Not in 10 months. Not after the investigation wraps up. Now, tell us if these men are foreign or British. Tell us what kind of threat we're dealing with. Stop pretending the public can't handle the truth. Because what we can't handle is a government that hides the truth like it's fragile china. And if, and I repeat, if any of these men turn out to be British traitors, then I hope they throw the absolute fucking book at them. No half measures, no polite little legal dance. Treason is treason, and traitors should be treated like the walking betrayal they are. If they're foreign nationals, that's a different fight, one with borders, deportations, intelligence cleanups, and diplomatic consequences. But either way, the silence has already exposed something deeper. This country is far too comfortable with weakness, and weakness is how enemies thrive. That's the whole damn point. Don't dress it up, don't soften it, don't contextualize it, say it, own it, fix it. Traitors are not forgiven, foreign infiltrators are not tolerated, and the silence from this government, unforgivable. You know, just when you thought Keir Starmer couldn't slide any lower down the moral drain, the man pulls out a shovel and says, "Hold my fucking pint." He's now using his authority, his office as Prime Minister, to shield none other than Prince fucking Andrew. Yeah, that Prince Andrew, the royal disgrace, the man tied to one of the most notorious sex abuse scandals on the planet. And this isn't just cowardice. This is a national fucking disgrace. The new low. This isn't some fringe nothing story. This is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom actively refusing to allow transparency about security costs and protections surrounding Andrew. At a time when ordinary people are struggling to pay for heat, food and rent, this clown of a government has decided that the protection of a disgraced royal, a man accused of doing vile shit with trafficked girls, is more important than public accountability. And this is beyond hypocrisy. This is state-sponsored rot. You'd think a man who promised decency, competence, integrity, all those pretty little PR words, would at least have the backbone to not protect a royal creep. But no, Keir is doing the one thing he knows how to do best, bend the knee to power and hope we're all too distracted to notice. This is what corruption looks like. People always imagine corruption as some envelope under a table, some cartoonish villain twirling a mustache. Nah, real corruption looks like this. Quiet, bureaucratic, sanitized. You won't see Starmer screaming, "Protect Andrew," on a podium. You'll see it in closed doors, legal shielding, official refusals to disclose, institutional silences. It's not the loud corruption that gets you. It's the soft, institutional pervert apologism by omission. Let's say it loud. This is Prince fucking Andrew. We're talking about a man who was publicly accused in connection with one of the darkest, dirtiest criminal networks of our time. A man who had to settle a lawsuit rather than face a courtroom. A man who, let's be honest, has disgraced this country more than most people sitting in prison cells ever could, and yet, instead of holding him to the same standards as everyone else, our government rolls out the fucking red carpet of protection. The monarchy gets to whisper, and politicians jump. The coward in chief. Starmer's silence isn't neutral, it's an endorsement. When you protect someone like Andrew, when you block transparency, you're saying loud and clear that there are different rules for people like him. This isn't about left or right, this isn't about class warfare. This is about a government choosing to shield the powerful over delivering justice, dignity, and accountability, and it's fucking disgusting. The blueprint is showing. Let's talk big picture for a second, because this shit isn't just a one-off. I'm noticing a pattern, aren't you? Across Western governments, whether it's politicians, royals, billionaires, or their best little friends, there's this weird, consistent reluctance to come down hard on the elite when it involves sex crimes. They circle the wagons, they protect by omission, they shield by silence. If you or I were even whispered about in connection with the crimes this man's been linked to, they'd have the dogs out. They'd drag us in. There'd be no Prime Minister covering our asses, but because it's Andrew, suddenly there's no comment, no accountability, no sunlight. It's like there's a dystopian pervert apologist blueprint being rolled out across governments. Protect the powerful, distract the public, bury the story under national security or sensitive matters. Wait until people forget. Well, fuck that. I'm not forgetting. The message they're sending. By shielding Andrew, Starmer is sending a very clear message. If you're rich, royal, or powerful enough, you don't face the same standards as everyone else. He's telling survivors, loud and clear, your pain matters less than their power. He's telling the public, we'll spend your money protecting a disgraced prince instead of feeding kids or fixing the NHS. He's telling the establishment, don't worry, I've got your back. This isn't leadership, this is subservience, this is moral cowardice wrapped in a navy suit. And let's not fucking pretend this isn't some, oh well, he has to protect the monarchy for stability bullshit either. We are talking about a political choice to cover the arse of a man who should have been treated like anyone else facing serious allegations. If Starmer can use his power to keep this man wrapped in taxpayer-funded secrecy, then it proves what some of us already know, this system is rigged. It doesn't just protect elites, it breeds them. The British public deserves to know. We deserve to know why the fuck this government is prioritising Andrew's image over justice and accountability. We deserve to know how much public money is being spent on his protection. We deserve to know why the Prime Minister of a modern democracy is acting like a personal butler for a disgraced prince. You can't talk about integrity, Keir, and then turn around and shield a fucking alleged predator. You can't run on decency while covering up royal rot. Pick a lane. This is how rot takes root. Rot never starts loud. It starts with one decision to protect a man who should have faced scrutiny. Then another, then another. Suddenly it's normal. Suddenly the public has been trained to expect that the rich get away with it. No. Not here. Not today. This is a fucking disgrace. And anyone still pretending Keir Starmer is some sort of grown-up in the room needs to wake the fuck up. Because grown-ups don't protect predators. I said it before and I'll say it again. This is a national disgrace. A Prime Minister shielding a disgraced prince is not strength. It's servitude. This country is rotting under a class of elites who believe they are untouchable. And if Starmer wants to stand shoulder to shoulder with that rot, then he can go down with it. Because protecting Prince Andrew isn't leadership, it's complicity, and it's fucking shameful. Not right, not left, just real.
Faux celebre. Fame but make it knockoff. A brand for people who wear sunglasses indoors and manifest through captions.